What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Issues Work podcast, hosted by yours truly, Chuck Clemens. And I got my brother here with me, Stephen Hurley. Steve, what's going on, bro?
It's going well. Another week two, I guess, officially of
Me
college
too, man.
basketball in the books.
It's kind of going a little bit fast. Like we're already in week two. Week episode four of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been great. I think we had a lot of high level games, whether it's high level, mid major level, low D1 level, all over. So I think it's been a great game so far, and I'm excited for this episode because like now stuff's really getting going. We have a little more of a sense of how teams may shape up, whether we're liking some teams, whether we're not liking some teams, even though it's still early on. But I'm super excited. Obviously hear your thoughts about certain stuff, and obviously just chop it up. So to get into it, let's talk about this past week of college basketball, man. I mean, it was, like I said, another great week of great games, high level top 25 matchups every single day. Basically, it felt like. Let's talk about Purdue versus Alabama. That was a one. Was it 2 versus 8 at that time?
Yeah.
Purdue coming off, a couple of not lucky wins, but wins that versus Oakland. Like team's supposed to really smack. Bama comes in after being St. John's, so obviously they're on a high and stuff like that. So Purdue has to come into Bama. They come in and kind of dominate basically throughout the whole game. You know what I'm saying? We were talking about this before in terms of, pace of play was going to be a huge thing between those teams. And obviously Purdue's one of the slowest teams in the country. Bama's the second fastest team in the country, just a tale of two ends, and Purdue came out on top early on in the season. So, what were just your overall thoughts on how that game went, and what kind of Purdue did well that Bama kind of can't keep up with?
Yeah. So I think defensively for Purdue, they made Alabama very uncomfortable, in my opinion. LeBaron Philon did not have a strong game. He was, whether he was shooting or his decision making, it just looked a step, slow in comparison to the St. John's game. So I thought Purdue did a pretty good job of making it, for Alabama, a little discomforting and whatnot. And then offensively, they really took advantage of on that. They run whether it's a Braden Smith pick and roll with TKR, that short roll, and then the pass, whether it's Jacobson or Clough, they had that over and over and over again. And it just kind of showed you, right? That was a team who they've played together for years now. You could see that they were just ready for that game. They knew they executed the game plan well, and credit to them. Going on the road is never easy in college basketball, and they just executed at a very high level.
Yeah, and I think for them, they're a team that we were talking about this before. Is like how can Brandon Smith, Lawyer, kind of guard these, or CJ Cox as well, but kind of guard these, Holloway, who did very well. Phylon, they, kind of made it tough for him. But what I noticed was they took a lot of like mid-range floaters, pull-ups, and obviously we know Nate Oates as a basketball coach hates those shots. They're
Right.
always trying to shoot threes or get to the layup, and I think they probably got to close to like 10 mid-range shots, and that's something that they don't want to do. So I thought they did a really, really, really good job defensively, staying in front, contesting threes, making them kind of take these mid-range floaters because that's something that they obviously do not work on, and kind of living with that. So that was like something I really took from that game was that they really kind of honed in on that defensive end.
Yeah, and I think sometimes with Alabama, obviously the St. John's game, they shot unbelievably, right? But when Purdue's able to control that pace of play and make it a slower game, those 3-point shots matter a lot more. And when they're not hitting, it's not the same when you're going up and down. So they were really able to slow the game down. And Alabama, I'd say, is a solid shooting team, but they're not a team where they're going to have a top 10, in the country shooting percentage team for the year. Their advantage is they want to get as many possessions as possible, and they feel like over the course of the game, those 3-point shots will add up.
Yeah.
But as the pace was all in Purdue's favor. So again, when you're not like this great shooting team, it really adds up
hmm I
for
think
sure.
I think what was huge for me. I talked about this last time was when these two guys, Baron Philon, Holloway, aren't knocking down shots. Who else can they lean on?
Right.
Obviously, in that St. John's game, Bo Bowen, right, so did very very well against Purdue. They didn't really step up to that plate. So it's like you can't really. Obviously, these two players are great players, but you can't put everything on their plate to kind of win you games,
Right.
game in and game out. So I mean, obviously, a newer team, a lot of transfers coming in. So I think there definitely be something that they have to work on in terms of okay, these guys aren't getting going. We need to find different ways to maybe get some plays for some other guys to get them in the right position. It might not just be on them, but get them in the right position to start scoring a little bit more, take the load off of the two guards.
Yeah, and I think for, again, this is not a bad loss for Alabama, right? Purdue's
Mm.
one of the five best teams in the country, right? So it's a great learning experience, but I think a real concern over these first two games definitely is that rim protection frontline defense, right?
Mhm.
St. John's, whether Zuby Ejiofor, Bryce Hawkins, they kind of had their way that game. And again, Oscar Clough, Jacobson, TKR, they really had their way. So that would be interesting to see because there's no really reinforcements on the way, I would say, in terms of frontline protection that's coming. So they're going to have to really work on that. And then again, the drop coverage they played against Purdue, Braden Smith, that's his shot. So I get like the mid range, is not really an efficient shot per se. But again, when a slower pace game, when you're giving Braden Smith, which that's a layup for him, TKR giving him that float shot, those are layups for those guys. So I did, the course of the game, they did try to hedge a few ball screens, which I thought was smart. But, the drop coverage, I did think from Oates there, I was not a huge fan of that for this particular game.
Yeah, especially a point guard, Brandon Smith. Like, obviously, they change up a little bit. Obviously, it works sometimes where there's blitzing the
Yeah,
ball screen, but those bigs were kind of making pretty good decisions. But point guard like Brandon Smith, you got to switch it up like
exactly.
every 2, 3 plays on because once he starts figuring out how
He's
you're
seen everything.
it's
Yep,
gonna be too easy for him. So
yep.
yeah, he kind of picked them apart. I think he had like 27, 29 points. Yeah, that was a great game for them in general. So
And very, very impressed I was with the younger players for Purdue. Omar, I think his name's Omer Meyer, and then
hmm
Daniel Jacobson. Those
yeah,
guys are going to be really good players for them
Jacobson
next year and
too.
the years
Yeah.
after. So Purdue's looking good. Nothing to be ashamed of from Bama, but
Yeah, no, at all. Yeah. So let's move on to the next game. This game was on Saturday night. Let's go to BYU versus UConn at Boston at TD Garden in Boston. Obviously, AJ DeBance's homecoming game. UConn's right there. They loaded up. Buses got a lot of people up there. High level game. At first, um, UConn kind of looked like they had this game in the bag. They were up by 20 points. They just looked more season ready than BYU was. AJ DeBance started out very slow. Richie Saunders had foul trouble. Um, the big man ended up getting hurt, so BYU kind of looked like they was all out of it. Obviously, they have someone who one of the stars who's just not was not able to play last night, or that night. But yeah, BYU didn't look that great in the first half. And UConn kind of had their way, and then second half kind of came back. AJ DeBanson kind of woke up a little bit. He kind of got their team back into it, and it ended up being like a great game. So, what were your outlooks on that game? How UConn looked early on, and then kind of what your outlook was on BYU as well.
yeah. So UConn, what immediately stood out for me this year was the point guard play. Demery is just such a huge upgrade from what they had last year offensively and defensively. In my opinion, he did a great job. The sets they were running, they were getting wide open shots, to be honest, in the first half, and you could tell that was a team with a little bit of continuity, and they were ready to play. Um, I do think in the second half, and I'll give AJ Demance a lot of credit. The first half didn't go his way. He was able to come around that second half, and you could see this high level skill he has of creating his own shots, and those are not easy shots that he was hitting.
Those are
So
NBA shots for sure.
right. So he was, hitting those at a high rate, and credit to him for not mentally checking out. I think that says a lot of good things about him as a player. Um, and I do think it'll be interesting in terms of UConn. Obviously, offensively, there's not many question marks, but I do think defensively, still a little bit of some questions, in my opinion, as you saw in the second half of just whether it was fouling, whether it was just, giving BYU way too many, opportunities to get back in that game. Whereas the first half, they were pretty dominant. Um, but yeah, as a UConn, a lot of positives to take away from. It looks like, again, they got solid, their bench, solid contributions. The backup center was very good freshman.
Yep.
Ross was very solid.
Store play some good defense.
Yeah, so I
Early
think,
on.
that's my kind of take on UConn, but you could, if you have anything to add on terms of
Yeah,
that.
no, I thought Terrence Reed played phenomenal. Like he was just a
Absolutely.
beast in the paint. His body looks way more slim. He still has that strength, and he has like that touch around the rim. So in terms of solo ball didn't have a great game. Carabin also did what he did, but I think Terrence Reed is just another outlet for them offensively, where he could be that relief in the paint if stuff isn't going on the perimeter. But I do think UConn they kind of look like in mid at least for the first half. For the first half and the good earlier parts of the second half,
Hmm.
they looked like they were kind of mid-season form in terms of offense.
Yep.
Obviously, there's a lot of movement off the ball. Obviously, it's super hard to guard. And in the first half, that's what was going on. Like they were running their sets very well, getting everything they wanted. And I think in the second half, they kind of they were all standstill. It was crazy. Like they were shooting the ball with like 5 seconds left on the shot clock. Everybody was just kind of standing around. That's not what we were accustomed to from
Right.
UConn offense. So I think that's a big reason why BYU was able to come back. But I was super impressed. Like it's second week in November. If they can kind of take that first half offensively and kind of drag that out throughout the whole year, I think they'll be in a great spot. Defensively, you're right. I think Silas is very good. Stewart, Ross are very good defensively, but it's like, you can't have that many lapses where you're letting a team come back from 20 down in the second half. And really, it was just like one guy. It was really just kind of AJ kind of doing his
Right.
thing. So that's definitely, still a question mark that I definitely have as well. But I was honestly, that was like my first time really, really sitting down and watching them. So I was honestly, pretty impressed of how the game kind of went for them.
Yeah, no, they definitely, early in the year and there's still a lot of time left. They have a big game this week, but they definitely impressed me. And then in terms of BYU, I do think now again they were without a starter. Their center got hurt, right? So, you know, there are some things I am honestly pretty concerned about. Now, AJ had tremendous shot making. A couple other guys, Baker had a few huge threes. Wright played right again. Rob Wright was very solid this game. Got in the paint, really did his thing. But they're a team that without a starter, and who knows, especially if their center's going to be back or whatnot for this, week. They have a pretty big game against Wisconsin. They're a very top heavy roster. I
Mhm.
would say the bench and the starters, a lot of questions in my opinion. So in my point of view, if AJ didn't hit those like NBA level shots, it's a 20, 30 point loss.
Yeah.
And so I have some severe questions with BYU. I'm proud that they came back and whatnot, but there's going to be games where, especially in Big 12 play, for example, they're going to go against a Houston, they're going to go against Kansas, they're going to go against these Iowa State, these defensive minded teams. And if they're not getting 25, 30 from AJ, I don't know that they have a chance.
Yeah. And I think that's what they look for, obviously, Reece Saunders. He can get his buckets. Rob Wright, more of a guy that I feel like he can get buckets as well, but he's getting 2 feet in the paint, trying to create for others. And I
Absolutely.
think they kind of need that extra score, that extra low post presence because it just takes a load. Kind of been saying so far, it takes a load off of AJ. AJ, obviously, he's a super talented player. He's shown us so far throughout the
Yeah.
season he can get 30 at ease, but
Right.
it's like that's not going to sustain for the whole year, especially when conference play starts and you have to play these teams
It's
like
hard, yeah, night
it's
in and night out.
hard.
Nothing against AJ. He could do it any
Yeah,
night, but it's tough. And I do give the coach credit. I like that they had that kind of three quarters court kind of pressure early in the start of the
yeah,
game, try to turn it over. But again, defensively, they gave. I know UConn's a great offensive team. UConn pretty much got whatever it wanted.
yeah.
And even in the second half, I wouldn't say it was due to BYU. It was due to UConn just kind of lackadaisical. So BYU's a team, I'm going to be honest, I don't really see the Final Four hype. I'm not even, and this is probably a hot take, I'm not even sure they're a lock for the tournament,
Oxford tournament. Wow,
which is pretty,
wow.
I know it's
We're
definitely
going
out
that
there.
far?
Yeah, because I mean, again, like I've seen in the past where sometimes these kind of like, I don't want to say all star, but the top heavy teams, it all it takes is one, right? As we saw, the one injury to their center, they looked, it was getting scary. Now, I'll give them credit, they came back, but in the Big 12, that's going to add up over time.
Yeah. Okay, we have one of the first hot takes of the Issues Sport podcast coming from Steve
Yeah.
Willie. BYU may not make the tournament. Okay, and then they're starting number 8 preseason, number 7, number 8 preseason to what you think is not even going to make the tournament.
Yeah.
Those are big
I, we
words.
we should have a white. We should really have like a notebook or whiteboard. We have to write these down. So
These
later
hot
in the year,
takes.
we could kind of, all
Yeah.
right, if they're in the final four, it's like
Well,
Steve, what were you talking
well,
about?
it's all gonna be online now. So I mean,
That's
it's
right.
out there. It's out there. So,
I'm
okay.
sure the real will do me justice.
Yeah, most definitely. All right,
Yeah.
well, let's move on to Kentucky versus Louisville. This is earlier in the week. We both had Kentucky winning this game. In my opinion, I thought um, freshman point guard for Louisville, a lot of offensive minded players. I didn't think that they were kind of going to step up to the plate against a Kentucky team that obviously has a newer team, but they have experience. They have championship level players. They have players that made it far, and they're older. But they proved me wrong. Michael Brown, he's elite. He's just super elite.
Unreal.
I don't know what like he doesn't look like nothing's phasing him. He had the straight face this whole time while he was just getting buckets, getting to the rim, knocking down threes. Someone that I always thought he was very very good, but I just thought it'd be, early on game I thought it was gonna be a little bit tough for him coming in, but he proved me wrong, and Louisville ended up kind of manhandling that game. But what was your outlooks on that Kentucky Louisville big rivalry game?
Yeah, first I just want to shout out Don Black. I mean,
Yeah,
he took
yeah, yeah.
he kind of gave it to us a little bit about you guys got to bring up Michael Brown, and
Micah, yeah,
he was right about that. So
yeah,
shout out Don. But yeah, so I would say that immediately stuck out again is the shot making, not only from him, but Ryan Conwell, McNeely, Woolley. I mean, Hadley. Those guys all could really shoot it, and it's the perfect blend of style of play, what the coach wants, and the personnel. So that's gonna. I mean, they're gonna be a tough out. They played really well at home. Very impressed with the shot making overall for them. Kentucky, they fought back, right? They were down big, fought back in the second half,
yeah,
a lot to
twice.
take away. Aberdeen, a lot of crucial shots he hit. He looked very solid, looked like, the point guard that they're hoping for. I do think with this team, and I think going into the year, there's some questions. I don't know that they have the high end. Now, they are missing a big player right now. Their center, who's supposedly, could be a lottery pick. So that definitely is a huge difference. But
Jaden Quintus.
yeah, and
Yep.
the top talent on this team, like you saw Michael Brown, you saw Conwell, and you're like, wow, those guys
Right.
are. And Kentucky, especially for a team that wants to play up and down, like you got to have, a few guys that could really just put it. Last
What
year was
about
Kobe
Otega
Brea.
Owe? He was preseason player of the play of the year in the SEC.
Yeah,
You don't think he'd be that guy for them?
again, this game was, I'll be honest, not an impressive game from him.
Yeah, he didn't play. Yeah, he played not great at all.
And I think he'll have obviously better games, but what kind of stuck out to me was the shooting was not there, and also defensively for a team that's supposed to be now this year, much better defensive team. I know Louisville's a tough cover, especially second, third game in the year, but defensively, they were a step behind all night.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, yeah, it's a team that's you could tell a work in progress. Definitely have the talent, but I just thought at home Louisville rivalry game, you could just tell like they were ready.
yeah, yeah. They were. They came out pretty hot. Those three, Brown, Conwell, McNeely, even Willie off the bench, who I actually very like. I really like. He could be someone that he's just a spark off the bench. I know how well he
Absolutely.
shot it. They kind of remind me of that Florida team a little bit last year with those three guards that can
Yeah.
spread the floor. Obviously, they were looking. Todd Golden was saying they're looking at that Warriors type of three guard kind of lineup. Spread the floor. Everyone kind of
Right.
create off the dribble as well as knock it down. And they kind of exposed the Kentucky defense in terms of like just spreading them out. You got to guard these guys 5, 6 feet behind the 3 point line down it. Mikhail Brown, he can get by his man at ease. He was kind of, every time Jalen Lowe was kind of on him, it was lane drive to the
Yeah.
basket, get into the rim. So it's pretty easy for him. So I think their team, and even their big guys. I'm blanking on the
It's
guy.
the European Sandra Frew, and then it was Khalifa who was on BYU 2 years ago.
Exactly. So they also could, spread the floor as well. So they could be a team that could
Yep.
play five out. Their big guys also can make plays off the dribble in terms of passing the ball, playing in the post, playing off stuff like that. So they're a team that can really spread you out, and they have the guys that can go off the dribble and create for others. So they might be if
Absolutely.
their defense gets to that level where it won't get to the level offensively how it could be offensively, but if they get to a somewhat high level of a defense, they could be a team that could create a lot of noise. Definitely in the ACC for sure, but even in the tournament, like that's the makeup that Florida kind of had last year. So um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the only thing I'd add to Kentucky is they have probably the most depth of talent maybe in the country.
hmm
But you could kind of tell this game, like at times I was kind of interested, like, okay, like they're playing a lot of guys, but it's like they're not really getting in a rhythm. It was like
hmm
one of the key rotation guys, they didn't play until really the second half was Cam
and
Williams.
yeah, he brought a spark. He has to play way
And
more.
yeah, and he really, that's what I mean. When he came in, he changed the game, whether that was
hmm
just a shooting threat that was out there for a team that was looking for something.
hmm
But again, I'll be interested to see over the course of the year. I don't know that they're going to be able to play 11, 10 guys the whole year. It's
Yeah.
just too tough. So I think that'll be an interesting storyline to watch with them.
Yeah, yeah. Let's cover one more game from last week. Let's go to a team that you're very high on, Illinois. They had a huge dub versus Texas Tech. We're gonna obviously talk about this a little bit later in the episode, but a lot of overseas players. They play a different type of style. That was my first time really watching Illinois. Number zero. I don't know his name.
Mirkovic, I
Yeah,
believe.
he's elite.
Yeah.
No, he's. Where's he from?
I don't know what they nicknamed like their group. They're all from like the Balkan region. I don't know exactly
No,
where. It might be Croatia, but I'm not 100% positive.
he's nice. He's pump faking dudes. They were jumping every time. He's a bigger body too, so he
Oh
was
yeah.
he was getting these matchups on the guards and just kind of taking them to work. But he was really good. Obviously, Boswell was doing his thing, and they just have a type of they're off like their game is just a little bit different. It reminds me more of an overseas game rather than just college sets and stuff like that. So
Right?
that was a great call from you. You called that early in the season. We'll see if they can keep it up. But I really like their team. On the Texas Tech side, JT Toppin, 35 points. He kind of just was carrying this Texas Tech team.
He
Who,
might have the most. I mean, Braden Smith's pull up is one of the best shots in college. He might have the second or the best shot in college basketball is hook shot.
yeah, his hook
I mean,
shot, the one is
jump hook. It
crazy.
is unreal.
Yeah, it
Like
is.
they're difficult jump hooks, and he's nailing them every
Yeah,
time.
yeah, from like 15 feet out. Like, how are you doing a jump hook at the free throw, bro? Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing? But
yeah,
it was
yeah,
going in, and
yeah.
he was kind of carrying this team as much as he could. But Illinois got it done. What was your outlook on Illinois in terms of even early in the season? Why do you think that they were kind of being this team that can make some noise later in the year?
Yeah, so I think that again, college basketball, it's easy to look at just pure talent, who has the most talent, therefore they're going to have the best season. But if you look at their how that team wants to play, they're another team. They want to play up and down. They want to play like offensively, share the ball, not a whole lot of isolation, but they just have a bunch of smart players. And as we saw, I'll use an NBA analogy. Sam Presti said when he looks for players, he's looking for the number one thing he's looking for is decision maker and smart basketball players, right? So I think just on the court at all times they had five guys who were smart players. Whether it was they cut at the right time, they take the right shot, they were looking for the one more pass, and again, their team they didn't have two of their better players in this game. They have 10 or 11 guys again, like Kentucky, and I think the difference between them and Kentucky is I think they have like again three or four guys that could play in the NBA, right? And I'm not saying that can't be the way for Kentucky, but I clearly think the center, who's the brother of the starting center of Illinois, he was a huge difference maker. He's someone who could, I think his name's Visage,
Yeah,
but he could stretch the floor, he could block shots, and it's like what guy in the Big Ten 7 foot moving like that? Not many. And the player of the game, Stojakovic, was money. He was in the paint and ones, pull ups. I mean, he came off the bench. So the depth of talent for them is just, and I think the difference between previous years and this year, they could really defend. And the two spots where they improved is their point of attack defense. Obviously, Boswell, great defender. But the freshman they have, I don't know his name that started, but he's an unbelievable on ball defender. And Visage at the rim is just he's a handful. So their team, big matchup again this week. They got Bama, but their team again, they're just going to be tough in the Big Ten. That Purdue Illinois game, that will be must see.
yeah. I didn't really know too much about them before the season, but once start talking about look into them a little bit more. But I was really impressed by just how ready they looked coming out. They looked super just sharp. Stojakovic doing what he did, everything was super simple. He picked his spots very well, and I feel like everyone played together with everybody. Like Basel was doing his stuff off. Number zero was getting his stuff off. Stojakovic was doing his thing. Isovich, whatever how you say his name, but he was doing
Yep.
his thing. So it's like a balanced attack. And I think that takes it's hard to guard that because how do you scout? How do you scout? It's like
It's kind of like UConn from a few years ago where they just had five guys on the court that were a threat.
threat
It's
exactly.
it's similar to that, and they're smart,
Hmm.
right? So it could be Stojakovic's night one night, it could be Boswell, it could be Visage, it could be Mirkovic, it could be whoever,
Hmm.
right? So their team again, a lot of talent, they're smart, and I think their head coach talked about it when recruiting, and we'll talk about it a little later, but European players, they care. You could see those guys, they're out there, they
Yeah.
really, this matters to them. They're not thinking about the NBA right now.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that American players necessarily do, but you could tell that like this is their Super Bowl every game. And that's huge in college basketball.
Yeah, because you only get 30 games, tournaments going, so it's like every game does matter. So,
Yeah.
yeah, super impressed with all these teams that we just mentioned, whether they won or lost. I was, like super excited for how they kind of do for rest of this non-conference schedule, right into the conference schedule. But let's move right into this. Something that you kind of came up talked about was the difference between continuity early on in the season versus new talent. So we have a lot of teams that went well, did well in the transfer portal, got a lot of different guys, a lot of top heavy guys, and they're working around. And it's early on in the season, so stuff may not be as what they probably thought would be early on. But and then you have guys that like a Purdue who's coming back with basically the same exact team as last year. They've played with each other for 4 years now. They have that continuity. They know how to play with each other. Um, and I think early on, we're kind of seeing a difference between some of these teams in terms of we play with each other versus we've not played with each other. It's early on in the season. We know what we're trying to run. We know what our goal is versus a team where it's like, okay, we're still trying to get our foot in the door, still trying to figure out how to play with each other. That's something that I've definitely seen on social media a lot was the difference between continuity versus talent. And I think that's something that's kind of showing up early on in the season that these teams that have been playing with each other know how to play with each other are kind of, not dominating, but doing a little bit better than these new teams with tons of just different transfers.
Yeah. So the first time I really noticed it was the first Saturday of college basketball with St. John's and Alabama. So Alabama, their backcourt, Cheryl in the front court, but those guys, they've all played together. So you could tell in that game, whereas like St. John's, whether it was defensively, whether it was offensively, it just didn't look a huge reason that game. Alabama was just clicking. You could tell they were in a rhythm. That was the first game I noticed it. But then the following, that same night when Michigan State played Arkansas, I was someone going into the game. I just thought Arkansas had a lot of talent, and Michigan State just. I thought there's a huge gap in talent. At Michigan State, you could see fears at point guard, the front court, Carr,
Oh yeah.
all those guys have played together, and they went to the Elite Eight last year. So they've
Hmm.
played in big games,
Hmm.
and especially at home in college basketball, you could tell they just knew what they wanted to do. Whereas the guards for Arkansas, young guards, freshmen, and even though Arkansas has some guys that have played together, especially at the guard spot, when you have that continuity and play together, because think about it, in college basketball, the guards are controlling the game for the most part. And if you have that continuity in the backcourt, it just makes a huge difference. So that's why I think now you're seeing these teams that have that continuity early in the season have a little bit of a step up for teams with quote unquote more talent.
Yeah, I think that's through all levels of that. Not so much the NBA. I think college
Yeah.
all the way down to like high school is more about like how much you play with the person next to you and kind
Hmm.
of building that camaraderie because a lot of the stuff is off the court. It's like you're with these guys every single day. You just naturally build a bond and you naturally just want to play hard for each other. But if you're coming with someone who's only here for a year, you know what I'm saying? And a lot obviously money is a big factor in that kind of stuff, but it's like you can't really build that fast. Or maybe you can, but more times than not, it's hard to build that faster than a team that's been with each other for 4 years. Speaking of like even in Liberty League, a team that, obviously I don't really want to say this out loud, but who I kind of liked was this Union team who started all as basically freshmen. They did so. Sophomore year, they made a jump. Obviously, we played them in the playoffs, and they gave us a run for our money. And obviously, I don't want them to do anything well versus our RPI guys. But I'm just saying they're a team that they're all the same grade. They played endless amount of practice with each other, endless amount of games with each other. So naturally, I feel like that continuity just brings teams to that next level rather than a team who is new, whether it's freshman, transfer. So I think that's college down. Continuity is a huge factor when it comes to winning big games.
And the big thing you see it with, everyone talks about offensively, just like, having that feel, whether it's in transition, getting that down. It's a bigger impact, in my opinion, defensively, because a lot of, defense, especially as we know in college, whether it's communicating, all that stuff, you got to not only know what you're supposed to do, which most guys early in the season, they're not quite comfortable there yet. But then if you don't know what you're doing, how are you supposed to tell other people and rely? Because defense is all about, as we know, just communicating, telling guys, what's coming. And that's where I think on that side of the ball, it kind of tells a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely seeing it early on with a lot of just newer teams, Kentucky. I mean, they're still great, but it's like it's going to take them some time to get to that midseason form. It's hard to ask them from that now. It's like you guys only been working with each other for since June, and now you're getting to real games versus other teams. So it's definitely a process that a lot of these teams are going to have to just take
Yeah,
time.
I think once it gets to like middle, late January, you start to see that's when the
Yeah.
teams start to really gel.
Yeah. It's super early. Obviously the last thing we're
Yeah,
talking about is just super early that we're talking about, but
right.
obviously our Alex right now. Let's move into this is something that you also brought up. We were texting one of these days, but
Mhm.
you think style of play is also a huge factor when it comes to early season games. This is something that I want to hear more of your thoughts on, but you say that more of slower paced teams, and we kind of see in some of these games that slower paced teams are doing maybe a little bit better, control the tempo, controlling the pace of these games. What were your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, so I think early in the season, it's much easier, in practice to set that structure up, that slow half court, whether it's defensively or in the half court. It's much easier to because you're following a structure, right? Whereas if you're a fast-paced transition team, that takes a lot of like reps, game reps of feeling, okay, this is what guys do and whatnot. That's a lot more feel than like structure. Because again, when you're a transition team, no one's telling you, hey, you got to cut at this spot depending on this situation every time. It's more just kind of a feel thing. So I think early in the year, teams that are able to, again, control the tempo, slower pace, it's easier for them to really execute what they want. Whereas the faster pace transition teams, right, they aren't 100% comfortable with what they're doing yet, unless you're, let's say, in Alabama, where you have experience coming back. That's a little different. But most of these teams in college now, it's a new roster every year. It's continuity is very rare. So again, I think in that early season, especially in neutral court settings where you're not having the home crowd amping you up and whatnot, that's a huge, decider in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it comes down to also basically what you're saying, but it's having like sets in terms of like you said that flow where people can kind of just not do
Hmm.
whatever they want, but play off of each other. And this also
Right.
goes back to kind of to that continuity. If a team does have continuity and they're playing fast, I think they can be a great team. Whether it's early season, mid season, I think it's also that also ties back into that continuity. But a team that doesn't have that continuity, it might be a little bit tougher for them. So having maybe a little bit more sets will be huge because coach is telling you got to be here, you got to be here, you got to cut here, you got to do this certain stuff here, and it's a little bit easier for um, faster paced teams to kind of get into these actions because they know what they're
Yeah.
going to do. You know what I'm saying? So I think a lot of that stuff goes back in time to continuity, how people are playing with each other, how long they play with each other. Um, but we obviously a lot of teams that we've seen that are faster paced teams are newer teams. St. John's, Kentucky, they're just newer teams, and it's like you don't know how to play with each other yet, and it's fine.
Hmm.
But obviously these bigger games you want to win, but just like it just comes down to how much these teams have played with each other and how you kind of run your stuff. So I actually do like that take in terms of early on in the season. When you first said it, I was like, it made me think a little bit because I never thought about that, but I do like that take a lot because I do think it does spell pretty true.
A great example of this in a neutral court setting is I both teams have some continuity, Arizona and UCLA, and even though UCLA lost, it was very clear that that game was played at their pace.
Hmm.
Arizona was very up and down team as they want to be, but UCLA really it was honestly pretty easy for them to control the pace of that game. That's why they had a chance. They built a
Hmm.
pretty 6, 7, 8 point lead in the second half. They were going to almost pull away, right? And give Arizona credit. This is why, again, I was higher on them, going into the year. They seem to be able to play at both styles of play, which is huge because in March, you could be going against a run and gun team, and then you're going against a team that's, the Hoosiers, for example.
Right.
You
Right.
want to bring it back, back in the day. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. So I think that'll be interesting. I think as the year goes on, I think it's more based off of who's kind of the home team and who's able to just better execute, their style of play. But early in the year, I think those slower half court teams definitely have an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Well, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of progresses throughout the whole season, mid-season, what gets a
Right.
tournament, what kind of teams are going to be, we kind of track it a little bit. What teams are winning these kind of bigger time games? But I think
Yeah.
early in the season we've seen a little bit of slower teams kind of controlling the pace throughout the whole game, and that's what basketball really is. Whoever controls the pace, controls the tempo, usually kind of end up doing better. So,
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
I was just gonna say, yeah, sometimes it gets overlooked, like we're so infatuated with the talent, but at the end of the day, it's like, if one team's playing at the style of play or the tempo that they want to, they're probably good. They have a great chance to win.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter who's on the other side, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Let's hop into this. I'm gonna call it the Brad Underwood segment from
yeah,
Illinois. Obviously, the European influence. The college game is changing, and it's changing fast. We've seen
yeah,
it since like 2022, starting from NIL, starting from the transfer portal. Now I think the next thing that is taking over college basketball is these European guys coming over and killing. It's looking like the NBA more and more. Obviously, NBA, you got players from overseas, Giannis, Jokic, Luka, Wemby. They are taking over the NBA game. And now it's looking like college coaches, college teams are kind of adopting that strategy, and they're going overseas looking for these players. Like you said a coach just mentioned that, or Brad Underwood just mentioned that he likes these overseas guys because they want to win. They're playing, obviously they're playing these pro games, but they're playing. My dad told me this a long time ago. They play like one game a week, so
yeah.
it's all practice. But it's like this is your one time to play a game, and it's like you're gonna go obviously your hardest because
Right.
you're not like if you lose, you're not getting this. You have to wait six,
A whole
7
week.
days
Yeah.
to get it back. So obviously that's a great point that he made, and obviously that you brought up. But um, we're seeing teams obviously adopt it. Brad Underwood's a huge adopter of it. We see a guy like Neo of Dallas, at Virginia Tech, and we've kind of seen it more and more throughout college basketball. Do you think this could be something that saturates the college game? I'm not saying this in a bad way, but do you see a lot of these teams going to Europe, going to these different countries, looking for these players over there because it's kind of working so far?
So I view it as in college basketball, there's probably three avenues where you could get players, right? There's high school recruiting, there's the transfer portal, and then there's European. I won't count the G League yet because it's just so new and then whatever. But the three avenues to acquire players, I'm going to view this as a third one. So I don't know that it'll be the primary way, but it's going to be another option. And I think why there's been, honestly, especially in the high major the past 2 or 3 years, the top quote unquote international players have had a lot of success is one, again, most of these guys are playing professionally, but also in college, think about it from a freshman point of view as a coach. You want guys who not only know what they're doing, but they're going to, again, they're going to fit a role. And again, sometimes in high school and American based players, there's no doubt that they're skilled. No doubt that they're skilled. But in European basketball, all those guys, they A know how to play and they know how to play a role for the most part.
Also, to add on to that, most of these high school guys are the best player on the team. You know what I'm saying? They're doing everything for a team. They're scoring, doing all this stuff. A lot of these guys overseas, they're not the best. They're not even like the top five players on their team. They're players that are coming off the
They
bench,
might be getting 10 minutes a game.
literally, and they're averaging like 2 points a game.
Right.
Obviously, they have the intangibles, they have the potential, so teams are gonna look at them. But playing in a role, a guy like Dame Sarr, huge guy for Duke. Obviously, he was a 5-star recruit from Italy. But he's playing a role for Duke right now, and
Yeah.
that comes from just him probably not being. He was on, I think, FC Barcelona,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
believe. I don't
Yep.
know how he did there, but I'm pretty certain he wasn't like the best player on the
No.
team. But you know what I'm saying? He's playing a role over there, so you come over here, you play a role, and that can get you a lottery pick. And I think he's someone who's going to end up being a lottery pick sooner or later. So I do think that's also another reason why these coaches do like seeing that because they can come in and just play their role. That's a great point that you bring up.
And I also think with the European guys and recruiting them, there's obviously in America, there's transfer portal rankings, there's ESPN 100. So you kind of can see, okay, who are the best quote unquote players.
Hmm.
Internationally, there's none of that. So if let's say a program like Gonzaga in Arizona, for example, they've been recruiting international players for forever.
Yeah.
And they've had tremendous amount of success because they've put the time in to scout over there. They know these coaches, these programs, and I think programs are going to start to realize there's a lot of untapped potential over there. there's so many countries, so many programs in Europe that have great players. And now with the NIL, these guys, do you want to sit on the bench for Real Madrid or do you want to get paid 2 million and go play for BYU, for example? Right? They want to come here. So if college coaches, I think, can really learn how to scout and build those connections there, you're going to have a huge advantage.
Huge
Because
advantage.
because again, those guys are, again, for the most part, I'd say they're at least 19, 20, 21 years old. They're also going to be not only mentally more mature than a freshman that's coming out of high school, they're going to be physically more mature.
Playing against grown men.
Right.
So
Right.
naturally, it's going to happen. And I think this is something that can kind of take over college basketball. Honestly, I think it's growing right now. I do think that this is something that's going to happen sooner or later. I also think that the game's going to change as well in college basketball. I think we're going to see more of a European style game, more of like an NBA style game. See what teams like BYU are kind of adopting it early
Yeah.
on. But that's I think that's something that where the game can kind of end up to, especially with a lot of these European guys coming over here. So it would be interesting to see how this kind of unfolds these next 5, 10 years in terms of college basketball and the European style. So
Yeah, it's something throughout the year we'll be interested to see the top guys, how their teams do. Because, for example, last year, Illinois, BYU, their best players, quote unquote, were two European highly touted prospects. One
hmm
team went to the Sweet 16, one team was throughout the year, pretty much top 25 team.
hmm
So it's like they had tremendous success. So we'll see how this year goes with the
yeah,
other guys for
most
sure.
definitely. Yeah. Speaking of just top players, let's talk about this freshman class. Obviously, they've been doing pretty well. Um, how about we just go through, don't have to be in any order, but who are like the top five freshmen you've seen? And it's probably gonna be pretty similar for both of us, but who are some like freshmen you've seen so far that are kind of just dominating the game?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go off what I've actually watched and seen. I'm not gonna, let's say if a guy, Cam Boozer, I think had a great game against, I think it was either Indiana State or West Carolina for Duke, right? I'm not gonna
Yeah.
comment on that because I didn't watch. The number one guy that I've seen so far, and it's kind of hard for me because I've watched him twice, is AJ DeBonsa.
hmm
He has just been, you could see the scoring potential, the his change of pace, I want to say might be the right word, is where he's someone who just he the skill level is so high. And as a freshman against Villanova and UConn, two high major teams, he's made scoring the ball look easy.
Right.
So he's probably my number one.
hmm
My number two, I would say, honestly, I was very impressed with Caleb Wilson,
That's
his
huge.
versus Kansas.
hmm
He was someone who defensively, he was, again, most freshmen, it's hard for me to say like this kid's a standout on defense. So the fact that he made that impression that game, against Kansas, he's someone, again, you could just the physical tools defensively, offense, he has a lot of talent there as well, but he's someone who really stood out to me. I would say he's probably number two. Number three, I would probably go Cam Boozer just because I thought versus Texas's first go round, I would say that his first half was just not, it just wasn't very good, to be honest. But his second half, you could tell he just makes the smart plays. He, took his time. He's someone, it's very impressive. Him and AJ, in my opinion, they didn't have great first halves in, some of their games, but in the second half, it didn't seem to phase them. I think that's a huge thing in college. So I think that's definitely another. I would say four. There's a lot of good options here, but
There's a lot.
I'm going to go with Darren Peterson. I'll just say just because he didn't have a great game against Kansas, in my opinion, but you could see the way he, again, at first half he was pretty solid, but the way he's able to dictate the pace of the game, he's never in a rush. You could kind of see like he models a lot of his game after SGA, someone who's just like controls the pace, gets to the free throw line. Again, he didn't have a great shooting game against UNC, so that's why I have him a little lower on the list. But he's someone who, again, I would say a lot of potential. He could definitely come to number one at some point. Would not shock me at all.
Yeah.
And then number five, I guess he counts as a freshman, but Neo from Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw that uh, Virginia Tech game. However, I did see his last two games, and they were solid. Not terrible games, but they were not the 30 something points that he had. But he's someone with, again, a lot of potential. Kind of, again, we've talked about it a little bit, his Luka style of play, I would say. He's someone who just, again, a lot of potential. But I would say those five have definitely stood out to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can go so many ways with this. There's just so many freshmen. Pretty similar with you. I'll just go top five, like no order. I have AJ in there, just like you said. He's just a pro. He just looks super super skilled,
Yep.
super long. He gets to his spots pretty easily. He's been shooting the ball pretty well, especially versus the UConn game when they're coming back, which I think is
Right.
going to be huge for his game in terms of just how much space he's able to play with. Um, Koa Pete, Cam Boozer, they're kind of very, very similar to me. Just two powerful, finesse, bigger guys that are smart, know how to pick their spots, know how to pass the ball, but are just super, super dominant. You know, they can go out. Cam Boozer get 20 rebounds. Koa Pete just get easily double. So they're guys that I'm really impressed with because I feel like we haven't seen guys like that in terms of like recently. I mean, Powell's another similar guy, but it's like
Where they're
there's like
physically right.
yeah, there's
Right.
overpowering these guys.
Right.
It's
Right.
like
Right.
I'm just bigger than you. I'm going to use my body. Whether it's Cole P versus Florida against these Florida bigs, doesn't matter who you are. I'm just going to use my body, and you're going to have to take it,
Yeah.
and we're going to
No
have to fight.
doubt.
So there's I'll put them both together. Caleb Wilson, someone I've loved so far, and he's a UNC guy, so it's hard for me to say that, but um, he just knows how to get buckets. It seems like he's just always in the right spot. Very dominant down low, whether it's making plays for others, whether it's catching lobs. He's a guy that I think could be really really good if that outside game can kind of pick it up to that level
Yeah.
of where like AJ is, Darren Peterson. That's asking a lot, but he's someone that every game has just been consistent so far, and it's huge for a freshman to come do that. He looks like someone that's hungry. He's talking that stuff again versus Darren Peterson, so it's something that I really
Right.
like as well. For my fifth player, obviously Neil is very good, but I think Michael Brown is someone that obviously deserves a lot of love. Going against a top 10 team in Kentucky, big rivalry game, one of your first games as a freshman, kind of leading this Louisville team where he's the best player on the team, and I think he knows that. I think everyone else knows that, and it's putting a lot on his plate. But he's looking at someone that can be that leader for them. So he was someone that I really he kind of proved me wrong in terms of how I thought that game was going to go, and I love that for him. I respected that a lot. So those were my top five that have stood out for me so far. Obviously, a lot of different guys: Darren Peterson, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas over there in Arkansas, like that. But there's a lot of freshmen. There's a freshman from Stanford who's averaging like 27 points, who's doing
Yeah.
his thing.
I know you
Um,
did a reel on him or a
yeah,
video.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just a lot of different guys, but I'll probably say those are my top five so far.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I honestly, I would probably chant. I would say Michael instead of Darren Peterson from what I've seen. If I'm being
Yeah,
honest,
right.
Koa, I thought he had a great first game. He really struggled against UCLA,
Hmm.
so I'm interested to see how that he looks in UConn because he's a great player, definitely
Yeah.
deserving to be in the top five. And then an honorable mention I watched him today was actually Kingston Flemings on
Okay.
Houston.
Oh
He was
yeah.
someone who
Chris
defensively,
Seaver too.
yeah,
Nice.
defensively, he really gets after it, no doubt on that, which is impressive for a freshman. But athletically, he's someone who has like that stop start ability to just
He's
be,
nasty.
yeah. His pull up was very good. He's someone who's done really well so far in the season, but against Auburn today, he was clearly, in my opinion, the best player on the
Yeah.
floor.
He's going first round, top 20 pick.
Yeah,
I
he's
think.
awesome.
I don't know how tall is he. Do you know how tall he is? 6'4"?
Yeah, he's a bigger guard for sure.
Yeah, no, he's elite. He's elite. And even Chris Senack, someone who
You
actually
literally can't go wrong. It's
yeah,
like
I'm
so
telling you,
many
yeah, it's
options.
crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, I
Yep.
mean, we talk about it every episode. Like you can't get enough of this freshman class. They're doing great. So we'll see how
Absolutely.
long it lasts for. Let's talk about some. I mean, it's early in the season. We're only a few games in, but let's talk about some teams that maybe some teams that surprised you so far. Teams that maybe were super high on that. Kind of like disappointed you. Obviously, it's early, but let's pick two for each. Two for each. I'll start it off. Two teams that surprised me. I'll go with Gonzaga. I actually do like Gonzaga. I think they're a super old team. I was just watching some of these guys
Yeah.
like Jalen Warley. I didn't even know he's on the team, but he's
Yeah.
a fifth. I think he's a fifth year guy.
Yep.
He's bounced around a few schools.
Grant
Obviously,
Foster.
Grant Foster's been in college for like 30. I mean, like 8 years. Um, Ek,
Yep.
another big guy. So I was really impressed with how well they played. They're a very physical team, just older, experienced team. I think they're a team that could definitely make some noise, obviously in their conference, but also in in the tournament as well. I think experience obviously does very very well. So it'll be interesting to see how they can kind of put it together. But I watched them and they were a team I was pretty impressed with. So
Yeah, I again, they are a team that they've played two or three power conference teams and honestly have handled all of them.
Yeah,
So, I mean, they
yeah,
handled Creighton. That was a very impressive win. But yeah, I would say in terms of a team that impressed me, oof, I would say I kind of, and it sounds silly, but Alabama when they played St. John's, they it impressed me. I forgot how good Phylon and Holloway and Wrightsell. Those guys are phenomenal.
hmm
So they were picked, I think, fourth in the SEC. That's clearly, I mean, that was not, it might happen, maybe who knows? The SEC is
yes,
very good, but they're a top level team. And
hmm
I think they have some question marks on the defensive side of things, but Nate Oates plus the guard play, they're going to be a tough team the whole year. I
yeah,
think they were very impressive. I thought versus St. John's, like I kind of thought St. John's was going to win pretty convincingly, and
hmm
they proved me wrong. They were
yeah.
clearly the better team, and they were impressive versus Purdue. They were right there, so nothing to be ashamed about with that. But I would say them for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think the second team for me, you could go a lot of ways with this. I was really impressed with Louisville. I think obviously I talked about it a lot. Michael Brown, how he kind of just leading this team, but like going back to what I said earlier, I think their makeup of the team is could be scary for some teams. Like they have a lot of great shooters. Woolley off the bench, someone that I don't think I've ever watched him play before, and he kind of surprised me as well. Like he can be a spark for them, coming in and taking the load off of those other three guys. And then you got the bigs who are just super versatile. Um, Coming off the bench starters as well, that can make plays. And I think that's just a team that later in the season could be very just dangerous team for guys to go against because it's like who are you gonna really focus in on? You know what I'm saying? It's kind of something that we said earlier. They have a balanced scoring attack, whether it's the starting five, whether it's some players off the bench. So they're a team that, like I said, they proved me wrong, and I'm definitely excited to kind of just watch them as they grow throughout the whole year. So
Yeah, I would say the second team for me was probably Michigan State. I think early in, like, if you asked me before the year, are they a top 25 team? I would have said absolutely not.
hmm
I just didn't see the high end, like, NBA talent, but I'll give them credit. They played an Arkansas team. They controlled the game. They were together. You
hmm
could tell that they just had that experience and continuity, like we talked about. And they're going to be a team again, a tough out. So, in
yeah.
terms of a team that surprised me, I just didn't think I thought Arkansas was going to win that game. And they surprised me at that. So, I'll give them credit. They got a big matchup against Kentucky this week.
Yep.
So, but their team again, they're, in my opinion, they'll be a top 25, 30 team, and they're going to be a tough out in March.
There always are. Time as a teams are just, you know how he gets when he comes to March. So
And I was going to say as well, another freshman, Cam Ward, who you actually told me that game, you were very impressed with him, and he was very solid for them. So it'd be interesting to see if he could develop into kind of a starter, upper echelon player for them. That could
yeah,
definitely raise their ceiling.
yeah, most definitely. In terms of teams that I'm not like disappointed in, but it's like early on. But I think Florida, I'm not super high on them right now. They had a tough game. Obviously, a Florida State team who's probably gonna be solid in ACC, but
Right.
those are games that you got
At home, you,
at
you,
home.
you
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just not, there's a lot of new pieces for them in terms of where players are at. Thomas Howell, who he's been impressive, been their best player by far so far. But Alex Condon, the big deal, I'm blanking on his name right now. Um,
Chinulu.
Cheney Lou, yes, but I
Yep.
think these guys like Condon he has to pick it up. You're preseason All American. I think he has.
Possible NBA guy, yeah.
Exactly. I think it'd be someone that, you got to be that 1-2 punch with Thomas Howe, and then have these other guys be kind of supporting players who they have the talent. Boogie Fland is a great talent. Zayman Lee's a great talent. Once they kind of figure it out, they could be a great team in the SEC. But early on, I'm just not really sold on these games so far from them, and I definitely think they have a lot to work on, whether it's how they play with each other, whether it's the bench, stuff like that. So
I
definitely,
think a big thing for that team is an actual fixable thing is the lineup construction.
yeah.
Because last year, Walter Clayton might not be a great defender, and they have the front court guys back. The
hmm
two guys on the defensive side of things for them, Will Richard and Elijah Martin, were
Yeah, they're
very
huge.
underrated
Very.
on ball defenders. And it's okay to like Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee. That's fine as in the backcourt, but I think an interesting thing for them is, okay, are we going to keep with the three big guys, or do we give
Hmm.
like CJ Ingram, McDonald's All American, who's a little bit more athletic on the defensive side of things? Could that be a possible addition to the starting lineup? And maybe
Yeah.
we'll see. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Todd Goulin's a great coach. I think he probably make some changes. Hopefully, if we're seeing it, he's probably seen it as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah, they're a team that I think just earlier on, I'm not too high on. So,
yeah. I would say for me, well, I talked about BYU, so I'm not gonna, hammer them too much
yeah,
already, but whatever. I'd say Kentucky.
yeah,
I think they're a team that two major kind of issues for me at least. They have this defensive identity that they cultivated in the offseason and through the transfer portal wanted to acquire.
hmm,
And I just didn't see that. They have some decent, athletes. They have some decent guys that could defend, but Louisville just kind of had their way, especially rebounding the ball, which Louisville is not a great rebounding team. And they kind of had their way in that game. And then another thing for them is the shooting is definitely streaky. I would say they're a team that if they're not going to be defending at that elite level like I think they want to, on top of that with the streakiness, I don't know that Final Four championship aspirations right now from what I saw is like
yeah,
that's happening.
yeah, yeah.
And they
No,
could certainly change things, right? They have a huge injury right now. I'm not saying for any of these teams, I think you and I would agree that they're not Final Four locks or they're not their season's not over. I just think they have they just have some real issues right now. They got to figure those out.
yeah, yeah. I think my second team, and it's hard for me to say this because they ended up winning all these games. They're still undefeated, but I think they have a great makeup. But I think Michigan so far earlier on,
I think that's a great pick.
yeah, they've been in some tough games. You know what I'm saying? Versus Wake Forest, TCU, who, are probably mid-level teams within their conferences. And this is right now a top 10 team. I think every game's going to be hard. When you play a high major team, for the most part, every game's going to be hard. We've obviously seen that. But I think the way that, you got to dominate some of these teams. If you want to be a top 10 team, top 5 team, be a Final Four team,
Right.
just the way it goes. Like you have to dominate these teams. It has to be like it can't be no back and forth. They should have lost to Wake Forest. Wake Forest kind of played it poorly within the last like couple minutes of the game. Obviously TCU, another like mid-level team, but you got to go in these places and you got to kind of dominate. Obviously Ellie Cadell, newer team, the big guy. I'm blanking on his name again, but he's really good. I think
Dave Mara.
yeah, he's
Yep.
he's he's pretty nasty. I think they're a team that they have some newer guys. Going back to that continuity that we were talking about earlier in the episode, but. I think they also be a team that can do very, very well once they start playing a little bit longer. But earlier on, team that, close games could have easily lost, could have easily go both ways. So they're probably my second team.
So that's a great pick you made, and I agree with you 100%. And their team, right? They want to play up and down, but right now they're turning the ball over. They had 22 turnovers in one of the
Yeah, I think the
games.
Bills had like 7 turnovers.
Right? If you're going to play up and down, that's like the kiss of death, is
Right.
just turn the ball over. So I agree with you. That's something with time that can get better. I
Hmm.
also think a little bit too, they're another team with that lineup construction. They tried that three big lineup kind of, and that hasn't been
Hmm.
great. I also think Yaxel's kind of been a little slow started so far,
Hmm.
but that's another great pick.
Yeah.
I would say for me, in terms of another team that I'd say, I know it's early in the season, but I'd say I want to I want to be careful with. I don't want to sound
Yeah. So
too much
you
hot take,
got
but
some hot takes, man. Which is
I would,
great.
yeah, I would say, and this is my own team, so
Mm.
is St. John's.
Okay.
So they're a team where you look at the roster and you're like, wow, this team, the talent is there. My kind of, little concern with them is I just think the guards that they have, they're talented players, but they just haven't been, especially in the Bama game, they were just like, again, defensively, they couldn't even stay in front of them. Now, I get it's an up and down game, so that's harder to do. But they just like for a Patino team that's defensively sound and that's their MO. I mean, they just defensively look like a mess. And I know it's Alabama, but it's like we saw versus Purdue. Purdue does not have the greatest athletes,
Yeah, they're still forcing
right?
some tough shots, though.
So that's a team where they have the front court, no doubt in my mind, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
have the depth, but it's just going to come down to, in my opinion, if they're a national championship team, can they get the guard play? And
Mm-hmm.
not just scoring, right? It's about controlling the pace of the play, not turning the ball over. And a big thing for St. John's is they're a team that forces turnovers. And
Mm-hmm.
they haven't done really a good enough job of that at all. They didn't do any of that versus Alabama. So
Right.
they're a team right now in terms of Final Four championship expectations. I know they're one of my Final Four picks, so this isn't great. But yeah, they're just I don't see it right now. Now they're they have a lot of big non-conference games, so we'll find out. But they definitely have some work to do. So
Yeah. Yeah, these are teams that obviously we're like 5 games of the
a lot
season.
of lot of time
A lot, a
left.
lot
I
of
agree.
time left, but these are obviously teams that we were probably high on coming in that maybe aren't doing as well as we think they might be doing. But let's go with some sleeper teams. Let's pick one sleeper team each that maybe team people don't really know about too much. I'll start it off. I actually have two. I'll say my first team, break it down a little bit, but then I have the honorable
Sure.
mention one. I'm going to go with Georgetown. Georgetown 4-0 right now. They have some very big wins. Beat Kentucky on an exhibition game a few weeks ago at Kentucky convincingly by like 15 points. They played some high major teams. They beat Clemson. Who else have they beaten?
Maryland.
Maryland as well. So these are some high major teams. And Georgetown's a team that historically, the past few years, Ed Cooley just
Yeah,
haven't been good at
they've
all. No,
struggled.
they
Yeah.
struggled. Obviously, you have Malik Mack coming in from Harvard. Um, Caleb Williams, another guard. The transfer from St. John's, I believe, Vincent. I don't know how to say his last
I don't
name.
know. It's a tough one to tongue.
Tough one to break down. But they're doing very well. So they're a team that can make some noise. And obviously, they're starting to schedule out a little bit. Not too. I mean, playing some big level teams, so maybe a little bit, a little tough. But I think they're a team that having this confidence, keep going, can make some noise throughout conference play.
Yeah. I watched the Clemson game and KJ Lewis was unreal.
Yeah, exactly. He's averaging like what, like 18, 19
Yeah,
points.
he was a defense getting steals, getting big buckets. He was awesome. That's a great pick. I
Yeah.
would say for me, one is I know we've talked about him individually, is Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a team that again, college basketball is all about pace of play, and what dictates that? It's the guard play. I
Mm-hmm.
just think so highly of Neo that in an ACC where there's some top, level teams, no
Mm-hmm.
doubt, top three or four, but there's no reason, in my opinion, that team can't finish in the top four in the league, right?
Yeah.
Mike Young is a very good coach. He was the coach at Wofford before he was at Virginia Tech, and they went and
Okay.
did well in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, the past few years, I did some research. They had some trouble getting guys in the transfer portal just from NIL perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And this offseason, they were able to really boost that up. So I think they're a team that is flying under the radar now that I think they can get to a second weekend in March. I really
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah. I mean, you have a player like Neo who's from that one game that we've seen. Obviously, hopefully he keeps it up, but he's a
Yeah.
game changer. He could control how the game kind of outcome is. So
Yeah.
that's also a great pick. But yeah, I mean, like it's great basketball so far. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how once we get into these like early season tournaments, whether it's these November tournaments are coming up, Players Era. Obviously, you got the Maui stuff, Bahamas stuff. So those are gonna be some great turning points as well for a lot of these teams. So I'm excited to get into that.
Yeah, I think these, tournaments as well, you kind of see where your team's at for sure against more quality, quote unquote, competition. But it's also a great thing to look back upon when March Madness rolls around because sometimes in your conference, you're playing against, the same style of teams over and over again. So it'll be interesting to see when we look back, okay, let's say, for example, St. John's plays, I think, Iowa State. That's a team that's going to be physical, half court, defensive minded team. And that could be in March. That could be a huge game for them because what if they play a team like that in March? So it'd be interesting to look back on that. I agree.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. So, yeah, I thought it was another great week of hoops. Obviously, getting excited for next weekend. Make sure you guys go check out our other video where we highlight our college predictions of the week. We've done 2 weeks so far. We're doing pretty well actually. So week 3 is coming up pretty soon. But once again, another great episode, Steve. This is awesome. We're gonna
Yeah.
keep going with this. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Thanks
yeah.
again, guys. We appreciate all you guys for listening and subscribing.
Yeah, so make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, we're just keep going with this. So we appreciate you guys.